Alright, welcome back. And today's video is also going to be slightly different because I wanted to talk about liberation and some of my issues I have with it. And it's not even just my issues. I feel like the community as a whole has issues with liberation, and that's not really an understatement. If you don't know what liberation is basically a way of getting new Nikkes for free through a way of kind of advising these Nikkes to try to rehabilitate these, like, criminal-esque Nikkes back to being on the good path. But there are issues that come with it, so I was gonna wait a little bit, but let's just get right to it. So I think you unlock, for new players, you unlock the rehabilitation stuff after 5-20, I believe. And then for the Heretic, I think you need to complete chapter 20 and fight her boss. I really don't want to spoil her, so just a heads up, I'm going to be talking about the Heretic, so you're already warned. That being said, though, you're going to want to go to the elevator, and let's talk about it. Let's talk about why this system is not great, and why Shift Up has also kind of abandoned it. And some of the problems that come with it. So, right at the start, they gave you 3 Nikkes that you can choose from. Now, the problem with rehabilitating these Nikkes is the fact that this can take, honestly, like 1.5 to 2 months if you're trying to free to play it. It could be shorter if you're using gems and stuff, but I really wouldn't recommend wasting gems on this. And this is different than the bond stories that you're used to with other Nikkes, because the stages of rehabilitation are the bond stories. So after you rehabilitate one of these Nikkes, there is no bond stories. You can advise them, but your stories are already done. That's why you also get gems from watching each of the stories as you progress. That being said, though, I do not like this system at all. I think it takes way too long, and I think that the Nikke's kits are pretty underwhelming in terms of what they provide for how long they take. I'm not asking for something meta. I'm just asking for something to be really good for the wait. Maybe like S, at least, because it seems kind of ridiculous that you would go through almost 6 months of getting all these Nikkes and then they're all just pretty okay. Obviously, the waifu aspect is there, but I mean, at the same time, you want these waifu Nikkes to be usable, right? They're usable. Guilty's especially usable. I think she's one of the only really good ones. And then Sin is kind of just and Quincy as well. That being said, though, you know, if you play and you use them because of waifu, then hey, I just want to talk about the meta aspect and how it's not worth it in this case. And I think it's annoying because also you can't just swap between. If I recall, if you were, like, let's say halfway between Guilty and you wanted to swap to Sin, it would reset your rehabilitation progress for that Nikke and you would have to restart. I remember this happened when I went from Guilty to Quincy. And it took way longer for me to get these Nikkes because I screwed up and I had to restart. So that was unfortunate. And you can't really get copies in the traditional way. You can't pull them on normal banners. This is the only way you can get them. And it's frustrating because it's such a long process. Yet, Shift Up has kind of abandoned this process because Liberation was, with these 3 characters, was announced so long ago. And they have yet to give any other Nikkes a Liberation treatment. We haven't gotten any new updates since 1.0. 1.5, we've gotten nothing in regards to Liberation. No updates or tweaks to Liberation. Nothing, no changes. I just think that they kind of regret this, or they don't know what they're doing with this, because they kind of just abandoned it. They don't talk about it anymore, and it's kind of frustrating because now we just have this system here. And after it's done, it's just here. You kind of forget about it until there's probably another Heretic to liberate. And I wanted to talk about that real quick, because outside of rehabilitating those 3 Nikkes, there's also called investigating. And then investigate, a Heretic in this case would be for Nihilister. And I remember everybody was so hyped for Nihilister. Her design is like SSS tier, and she's great. Literally, like Dragon Mommy, right? But the problem with her is that you have to go through this investigation process, and it's even longer. It takes longer to rehabilitate her. And I think this one took like maybe 2.5 months, maybe 2 months, maybe even longer if you don't do all the dailies. So it took a lot of time, especially for whales, to get these because you still gotta use gems and there's a maximum amount for each day. So it still took a bit. And then the unfortunate part is that even though she was a great tough boss in the story, her kit's pretty whatever. She's a burst 2, and she was great for tower just because of that, for her burst 2 20 seconds. But now that we have Crown, she's pretty much useless now. And I'm sorry to say that because I know there's a lot of Nihilister fans out there who buy the copies, but she is just not up to snuff. They did not do her character justice, and I honestly want to do a video on a lot of Nikkes that have kit problems, but I feel like that's a long list, and I don't know if it's worth it. I honestly don't, because a lot of Nikkes have bad kits, especially Nihilister. I think Nihilister's is the worst because it's the fact that you go through all this trouble to get her, and then she's just mid. And it's such a shame. And you're wondering, okay, well, if you get the characters this way, then how do you even get copies? Well, that's where Union Shop comes in. So, Union Shop beforehand was dedicated just for buying cube currency. But that changed when Liberation happened. So as you can see, you can buy the spare bodies here. And they cost a lot. For the normal Liberation Nikkes, it's 15,000. And from what I recall, I think I get like 3,400 to like 6,000 per Union raid. So I don't even get, like, I get maybe half of what it costs for one spare body during a Union raid to get a copy. And Nihilisters is 20,000, so I don't even get half. And this is the only way you can get copies. You can't use pity mileage. You can't pull for her on the banners or molds. You can't. This is the only way to get copies. And honestly, for such lackluster characters too, it's such a shame. I think this can use a rework, but they just choose not to. They had so many opportunities to try to improve on it. And that's why a lot of people are worried about other Nikkes or Heretics that we've seen in the game. Because are they going to get butchered like Nihilister? Or are they going to actually get good kits, but then we still have to go through this horrible 2-month system? It's just a lot of frustrating things with this that they choose to kind of ignore and then they just kind of abandon. Which is a shame. Because I think the Liberation system could be interesting and cool, but they made it way more grindier than it needs to be, and they've choose to not try to fix it. But honestly, that's about it in terms of Liberation. I still think it's great that you get a free Nikke, free SSR and stuff. In my opinion, if you're going to try to work for one, in terms of like providing for your team, I think Guilty's still the best. I think Waifu, I think Sin's awesome. I love her like paint kind of design. It looks amazing. Quincy's also up there too for Booba. But outside of that with Nihilister, work on Nihilister last because you'll be disappointed in her kit because she doesn't have good numbers compared to her boss fight. Which is a shame. I think they did her so dirty. But honestly, that's all I really wanted to talk about today. Because I just kind of, it was like a slight vent, I guess, just because it's kind of frustrating seeing Shift Up ignore Liberation, but it might be for the best, since they don't really know what they're doing. But that's it for me. I hope you guys are liking these videos. I know it was a little bit different with the FOMO video and this one, but there's a lot I kind of want to talk about, especially with Nikke. So I hope these videos are interesting at all, or give a little bit of insight into what's going on, especially if you're new. But thank you for all the support, and stay tuned, and I'll see you real soon. Goodbye, and take care.